He started by quickly saying that I noticed that Andrew Cuomo, the primary example used in our old man shit episode, has officially bitten the dust. He has resigned. I just felt the need to update those of you that didn't know. It's funny because I was talking to Reggie over the weekend. Yeah, that Reggie. And he was predictably upset that Cuomo didn't put up more of a fight. Like most men, he feels that if no harm is intended, then no harm should be taken. But for those of you that have listened to this show from the beginning, that's not really a surprise to you that he taken that stance. Oh, Reggie. Oh, I miss Reggie. He'll be saying goodbye at the end of this episode. And while I'm throwing Reggie under the bus, even though he's not ashamed of his stance, so I don't know if that's really throwing him under the bus. He does have somewhat of a point, though, the larger point about people being overly sensitive in general. I just don't know that it applies in this particular case. Anyway, enough about Andrew Cuomo. I seriously hope and doubt that I will ever mention him again in this particular. Well, I said that about Kanye too, and I mentioned him in every single episode, it seems. Anyway, forget all of that. Let's talk about online dating. Speaking of things that I mentioned in every episode, but I want to talk about that again, but from a different perspective this time. Or online dating, or as I refer to it as the gift that keeps on giving, at least for this show. I love online dating. Don't get me wrong. That's not to say that I'm getting quality results from it. So I don't love it for the reason that it's intended, but I love it though still. It's like that show that you watch, but you don't know why you're still watching it. Like the first season of the show was good, but then it kind of fell off, but you still auto recorded. And since you auto recorded it, you still feel compelled to watch it. But for me, it's just such a great case study on human nature. And I learned so much about dating, specifically women, from online dating, even now. And not just from women that I go out with, women that I meet and go out with that I from one of the platforms or whatever. I learn a lot from women that I don't even interact with just from their profiles. People that consistently listen to this show, they know that I am far from a relationship expert, and my single status speaks to that. And I also don't have a clue about women. I always have to run that disclaimer, even after all of these years of dating. Yeah. And that's why online dating is so important to me, because it gives me a window into women without having to even speak to them in a lot of cases. Now, the data that I get from the women on online dating profiles, it can be kind of skewed. For example, one of the conclusions that can be taken from online dating profiles is that there's an extreme amount of bitterness out there. And bitterness might be a harsh word. Let's call it an extreme amount of hurt or pain or whatever you want to call it. But with all of that said, I refuse to believe that that's a microcosm from the. I refuse to believe that that's a microcosm for all women. Or is it? Hmm. I've dated plenty of women outside of the online world, and some of them have come across as being pretty bitter. But with that said, it's such an extremely small sampling compared to women that I've seen online. So it's not fair to make any assumptions like bitterness or painful or hurt or anything like that. It is what it is, which is part of the reason I'm not an expert. But I bring all of this up because if you're doing the online thing long enough, you see certain trends. And unfortunately, I've been doing it long enough in some form or fashion, or should I say, some platform or another, some platform or fashion. But like back in the day, as in years ago, The complaint the complaint from men was that women didn't look like their pictures. You meet a woman and she would have gained 30, 40 pounds or something like that, and it'd be an issue. And as a result, you feel like you were being catfished in some form of fashion. Now, it seems like that trend has reversed, talking about from then to now. And it seems like more women now are complaining about meeting men who might have posted their Al Bundy high school football photo, and then they show up and they're with their beer kegs and all of that stuff. So that's just an example of how things were back in the day versus how they are now. So with that in mind, I want to talk about a couple of trends that I've noticed that I want to speak about that are different from how they were back in the day. The first trend, because I said there's a couple, is how people are using current events to disqualify potential suitors. That just wasn't the case back in the day. Over the last few months in my quote unquote research, I've noticed more and more women, in my case, because I date women, not men, but I'm imagining that women can apply this to men as well. So I don't want to leave anyone out. And every time I mention something about a woman, I have 10 women coming back at me saying, well, men do that too. So I'm just being inclusive, but I'm speaking about my case in particular because I date women. But in my case, I'm coming across more and more women that will just come out and say, if you're a Trumper, don't reach out. And like I said, that can go both ways, male or female. But while there are women who are saying, if you're a Trumper, don't reach out, there are also women who will proclaim their love for Trump and ask not to be contacted if you don't share that love. Okay. And people are saying now that, and people are now saying that even though Trump hadn't been in office for like a year almost. But I guess the sentiment is what matters. And it's not necessarily the guy, but now it seems to be more of a mindset. And while that's an overt example, even though it's an example that I'm saying I've seen, but it's overt. Don't contact me if you're a Trump fan. Don't contact me if you don't love Trump, whatever. Less overt examples in profiles might include some people expressing that they support freedom or that they back the blue. So while they won't say directly, don't contact me if dot, 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 that coded language says it without implying it. Like, I think of myself as being someone that backs the blue. I think of myself as being someone that supports freedom, but I don't back the blue or support freedom like someone that would put it on an online dating profile. So there are differences. I'm also seeing more people mention BLM, and that's Black Lives Matter for people that might not know. And shame on you if you don't know, but they're putting that on their profiles. And let me just, before I move on, I'm sorry. That really sounded like judgment, me judging you if you didn't know what BLM was, and I didn't mean to come across as judgy. But if you didn't know, now you know. This let's chalk that up to being a teachable moment. But I can't imagine that there are people listening to this that don't know. Anyway, and when I mentioned BLM, Black Lives Matter, in their profiles, it's weird because I'm not just talking about Black people, which is cool. I see that in a lot of white profiles as well. And that makes me feel like there might be some hope for this country. I do find it odd when Black people put it in their profiles, though. It's like, shouldn't that be obvious? I guess I shouldn't take anyone or anything for granted. Hey, it's good to know. And this is the funniest one. And I'm amazed at how much I'm seeing this lately. There are women that actually write in their profiles that if you're a Kevin Samuels fan, don't contact me. I'm amazed. and fairly impressed actually that that man's presence has reached into the world of online dating. Just the fact that women will waste precious words in what's supposed to be a description about themselves, they take time to talk about him. I'm so jealous of him right now. Not necessarily because I agree or disagree with any of his views, to each, but because I want that kind of reach. Remember, tell 50 friends to tell 50 friends. Man, I'm jealous. Okay, enough about Kevin Samuels. Another current event that's really tripping me out when it comes to online profiles is the topic of vaccination. Another current event, really current event. There are quite a few profiles that mention that you shouldn't contact them if you're anti-vax. But that does kind of make some sense though, because we're talking about health issues. But I'm seeing just as many people saying the opposite. Like, if you've been vaccinated, then don't contact them. So anti-vax on one side, vax on the other side, both saying in their profiles, don't contact me if. Interesting. I have to say though, I did reach out to a woman, and we connected, and she was one of those people who was like, if you've been vaccinated, don't contact me. I just wanted to see why, what her stance was, what her reasoning was. And for her, it wasn't even about health. It was more about not wanting to be with someone that was brainwashed or gullible. Okay. Now, okay. I've been vaccinated, so obviously I wasn't her soulmate, but I was fascinated by that mindset. Like, I have friends that aren't vaccinated for a variety of reasons, but I never thought about not being their friend because of it. And honestly, I don't know that I disqualify a woman that I was interested in because she wasn't vaccinated. I know that some of you might think that that's crazy of me, but remember, this is the no judgment zone, so don't judge me. It's just fascinating to me how much more polarizing we've become in dating. It's like, are there no more James Carville, Mary Matlin relationships out there? And for people that don't know, James Carville, he's a lifelong Democrat, worked in the Clinton administration, blah, blah, blah. Mary Matlin, she's a Republican. She worked in the Bush administration. They've been married for 100 million years. And she's not a moderate. She is far right. He's not a liberal. I mean, he's not a moderate. He's far left. And they've made it work. But are there no more marriages like that in life? Are we at a point where we have to be with someone that walks lockstep with us in our beliefs? Like back in the day, you were allowed to have philosophical differences. A topic would come up, you debate the topic. The debate might get heated, but at the end of the night, you have great makeup sex. Well, I shouldn't even call it makeup sex because you wouldn't actually break up. Let's just call it post-debate sex, if you're in the right kind of relationship, that is. Then you'd agree to disagree, and you just avoid the topic in the future in favor of things that you actually have in common. But these days, man, if you don't agree, it's cause to break up. That's if you even get together in the first place. Hmm. And it just speaks to how ridiculous all of this stuff is. The vaccination thing is one thing that I can't understand. But Kevin Samuels, we can't get together because of different views on Kevin Samuels? I, with all of this mess, no wonder these online sites are making billions of dollars while we continue to remain single. It's like, back in the day, I used to hear people all the time talk about how they met on an online site and they got married or they had sustainable relationships, as in close to marriage, that started from an online site. It's weird because there are more and more people online nowadays, especially due to the pandemic, but I'm hearing less and less about success stories from those experiences. Interesting. Interesting. Basically, it's because our criteria is all fucked up and getting more fucked up by the day. Now, with that said, I still am a strong proponent of online dating. So I don't want that to come across as me being anti online dating, because in this day and age, especially when I talk to women who still expect a man to just show up at their house and knock on their door, you know, it's a component that should be used, but it shouldn't be the sole component that should be used. And you should also expect that what happens online, you're going to meet those same people outside in the real world. So you're going, I guarantee you, you step outside your door, you're going to meet someone who has a view on Kevin Samuels that doesn't match yours. So you can't just put it all on online. This is more of, like I said, it's more of a conversation about human nature, not necessarily the crap on online dating. Even though I hadn't found my soulmate, or as Reggie likes to say, twin flame, as of yet, I am forever hopeful. So, with all of that said, I said at the beginning that I was noticing a couple of trends. And that the first one that I mentioned, that people are disqualifying each other based on current events. The second trend that's really interesting and fascinating to me is the topic of phone number etiquette. As a person who's not of a certain age, but serves a certain demographic that might be older than your millennials, I come from an era where you meet a woman at the club or at a gas station. Actually, I've never approached a woman at a gas station or grocery store, wherever. You meet a woman, you walk up to the woman, you ask the woman for a number, and that woman would either choose to give it to you or not. Or in some cases, she'd give you a fake number. That used to be a really popular thing. I hadn't gotten a fake number in a long time, thankfully. But yeah, that used to be a thing. And I guess it makes sense. I mean, the easiest way to get a dude off of you if you're a woman is give a fake number and send him on his way. Yeah, anyway, but part but recently, more and more women are taking strong stances on giving out phone numbers. But part of the problem, at least from my perspective, is that there isn't a clear stance on the topic. The only thing that's changed in recent times is that women just seem, like I said, to have strong opinions on it one way or another. For example, I'll see a profile that includes a lecture that goes something like, if you're a serial dater, don't contact me, blah, blah, blah. If you're really interested, you'll ask for my number, blah, blah, blah. So, despite the negativity in that message, one, I don't like to be lectured. This does at least appeal to me because I'm the person that likes to get the number as soon as possible so we can have an actual conversation as soon as possible so we can make a determination as to whether we fit as soon as possible. But a lot of women disagree with that. They feel like if you ask for the number too fast, it's a turnoff. So I guess you can text back and forth through the app for 6 months, and then just seems like 6 months of wasted time to me. But that's just my personal opinion. Hey, people have different opinions, obviously. But I'll go to the next profile when I'm just perusing, and I'll literally see the exact opposite. Someone will write in their profile, don't ask me for my number after just reaching out to me, blah, blah, blah. As if they hadn't discovered the block feature on their phone if the conversation goes left. It's weird. Also, I've reached out to women recently and we've had good positive interactions just texting through the app. Then, when I take the next step and I've asked them for their phone numbers, they essentially ghosted me. Now, I don't know if that really counts as ghosting, considering we never actually had an actual conversation where we actually heard each other's voice, but you get the point. And it does make me wonder, if you are communicating through the app via text message, their text feature, and it fades out. Is that ghosting? I don't know. I need to explore this whole ghosting thing. But anyway, that's neither here nor there. Well, actually, it is here and there because it's part of what I'm talking about. Anyway, and like I said, all of this phone number stuff is recent. Years ago, getting a phone number from someone online, it was never a problem, especially if both of you hit the like button on each other, which is the way that you're put together in the first place on many of these apps. That one is just so weird to me because you get burned regardless of how you feel about the topic. I don't know. I don't get it. I don't know why a woman, I, I don't, there's no need me going back down that road as to why a woman would be reticent to give her phone number out to a dude that she hit the button on that she likes. I don't know. So those are a couple of the things that I've noticed in recent online dating versus past online dating. And because I don't want to come across as being all negative and all of that stuff, I will mention one positive thing that I've noticed from back in the day. Back in the day, people used to be quick to let you know that they didn't date outside their race. And back in the day, many women didn't date outside their race. I don't see as much of that anymore. And maybe it's kind of hidden behind the coded language of back in the blue and supporting freedom. I don't know. But with that said, while I'm trying to keep it positive in this society that we live in today, with cancel culture and everything, and I do believe in cancel culture, by the way, so I don't want to have that debate. Or actually, we can have that debate, but I do believe in cancel culture. Some people need to be canceled. You shouldn't just get a pass to offend, and just say I'm being canceled anyway. Sorry about that. But with the society that we live in, with cancel culture and everything, shoot, people could just be afraid to say that they don't date outside their race because they don't want to be branded as a racist if they say it. I don't know. We live in interesting times. I know one thing, no. As we get more and more closed-minded, boy, we need to start accepting that we're gonna be single for a longer and longer period of time, or just be in crappy relationships because we're so closed-minded. Hmm, who knows? And one last thing, speaking of recent online dating trends, I need a woman to explain to me what a narcissist is. Like, I know what the definition is, but as I read more and more of these profiles, I'm believing that they're not using that word based on the actual definition. Kind of like the way that people have misused the word diva so much that it's taken on a whole new meaning. Like people have changed the meaning of the word diva. They've like caused Webster to add a new definition of the word diva. Same thing with ignorant. If you mention that someone might be ignorant about something, they'll want to fight you, even though they might actually be ignorant about something. And everybody's ignorant about a lot more than they are knowledgeable about. But going back to the narcissism thing, I'm seeing more and more women talk about not wanting a narcissistic man in their profiles. But to those women, I will say there is a pretty wide gulf between a guy being arrogant or conceited and being a narcissist. A narcissist might kill you. An arrogant guy or a conceited guy, he might just be coming to your house, stop by and get some Popeye's chicken and not get any for you. There's a difference. So let's be clear about that. I think I'm done for today. And before I sign off, let me just take time to celebrate, and you all should celebrate with me that I am closing this show without mentioning that somebody died or somebody got divorced. Now, with that said, there are plenty of people dying and plenty of people divorcing, but just the fact that there isn't anybody that's hit my radar that I want to convey to you on this podcast episode, we should celebrate that. Oh boy. As always, I am so appreciative of you all listening. Email me if you want to at michael@datingwhileadulting.com. If you have anything that you want to talk to me about, hey, I'm an open book. I'm free to talk. I like to talk. Tell 50 friends to tell 50 friends to download. You can find this on every platform imaginable: Spotify, iHeartRadio, Google, Apple, blah, blah, blah. Even some of those joints I've never even heard of, like Stitcher. I don't even know what that is, but I'm on it. Well, we are on it, me and Reggie. So wherever you listen to podcasts, you can find us. Go check us out. Go download it. If you're on Apple, subscribe, leave a comment, I guess is what they say. I, Whatever, man. Just tell 50 friends, tell 50 friends. Thank you all. Reggie, I referenced you, already talked about you earlier. Come and say goodbye to the people. Reggie. Well, Reggie's not speaking. I think we're at a point now where people who are new to the podcast, they might actually think that Reggie's like my imaginary friend or something like that. But for people that don't know, Reggie is the person that co-hosted this podcast back in the early days, I think through the first 50 episodes. And I still consider him to be the host of the podcast. I still hold out hope and belief that he will come back and join me. But until then, he'll just be off on the side, just saying goodbye to everybody. So he won't say goodbye. I'll say goodbye. I'll talk to you all later. As always, thanks for showing up. And until whatever day you listen the next time, thanks. Goodbye.